Welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we'll see about the open URL redirection. So first of all, what is URL redirection? So URL redirect is a web server function. So it can be any keywords, like you can see the redirect keywords or page keyword or load keyword that will send a user from one URL to another. So user will think that they are just going for the legit website, but instead they will be redirect to another clone website or a malicious website. So redirects commonly take the form of a automated redirect that uses one or series of status code defined within the HTTP protocol. So speaking of the URL redirection, we need to see that some of the HTTP protocol has some codes or HTTP code status code attached to it. So there are several types of redirects that is available to the web developers, including manual redirects, HTTP 3xx series status code. So this is very important. We also see about these 301, 302 and 303 series status code to see if URL redirection is possible in particular parameter or not, because we are in the boundary of XSS. So first of all, we'll see how that parameter is vulnerable or not. So first of all, we'll see if XSS attack is possible on this website or not. If this parameter, or if that parameter which is reflecting back anything we just passed in that parameter, then there is obviously the XSS attack, because in the case of XSS attack there is a reflected XSS attack. As any input that is given to the parameter is reflected, there will be the XSS attack. And in this case, if there is a XSS attack, we'll test for the URL redirection to those parameter using the intruder of the burp suite. So we have to take care of this status code which starts with 3xx. So we'll see all about that in the upcoming lecture about the URL forwarding, domain redirection, domain forwarding. So you can see the open redirection attack processes right here. So this upper part is basically a successful login to the trusted site. So user will click a link to a trusted site over here, and there is a SSL encryption going over here. So it is the trusted site and user will log into the site successfully. But if there is 301 redirection, then user will receive the redirect and user will be redirected to the malicious site. They won't be going to the trusted site. Instead, they will be redirected to the malicious site, and this is the malicious site. So user can input anything in this malicious site, and hacker can access that information of the user from this malicious site. So redirection can be also powerful attack in the case of this XSS attack. So first of all, we'll see how this open redirection work in the real website, and we'll see how intruder works with the different payload that can be injected in the URL to redirect from this legit website to the malicious site of the hacker. So we'll see all about that in this upcoming lecture. See you in the next one. Now let's hunt for the URL redirection through the path fragment. So first of all, you'll simply open this handy dandy link. So it contains all the bug bounty cheat sheet. So simply go on this link, and here is the open redirect and the possible open redirect parameters. So you could see we have already discussed about this, that is the terms. If it has any terms like URL, you can inject your target website over there. But for this lecture, we'll see the open redirect through the path fragment. So we'll just target this website over here. So let's see if this works or not. So first of all, we have the link over here, that is the Google, and basically we'll have the redirection to google.com if this work, or if any of these payload work. So let's try one by one. So let me just copy this, go over here. So what you need to do is at the last of the link you need to simply paste, because this is your new payload. So if I just hit enter, and it is saying 404, that means nothing found. So if this is the case, then there is no open URL redirection in this parameter or in this field or with this payload. So this payload is not working for this link because we simply get 404. So 4 and 404 error is not found error, that means it is not working. So let's try for another payload again. So you can grab this payload from the resource section. So at the last of the link you need to simply paste this one, and if I hit enter again, it should show 404 error, that is again not found. Let's see or try this one. Let's go over here and let me just paste and let me just hit enter. Then it is saying 403 forbidden. This means you are not allowed to just access this information, so it is also not valid. Let's go over here and let's paste it the next payload, and it is also saying it is not valid. Let's go to the next payload. This is the another payload, so let me just copy this and we go to here. Let me paste it over here, and if I just hit enter, then it has been redirected to google.com. So you could see this payload is working for this link. So you can simply copy this, that is a payload. You can simply fire this payload at the end, so it has already fired. So if I just hit enter or if I just replace this again, then you could see this is our new link. And if I just hit enter, or you can simply copy this and give it to something that is new browser or basically new user. You can also make use of some online services like Bitly, which will just encode your URL or basically shorten the URL and give the URL that is not suspicious enough. So you can simply paste it down here, your link, and let me just copy this, the new link. So okay, let me just copy this link, and it should give me, okay, where was that? It was here. Copy this, paste it over here, and I'll just say shorten, copy this link and give it to the new user. And this is my new private user. Let me just copy this, then it will be redirect. Let me wait for a moment. It should give you open redirection, but it is not working because it has not encoded properly. So it should be like this. So if I just give this URL to any browser, then it will just redirect to google.com, and you could see it is not the original website. Instead it is the new website, or there is a URL redirection. It is not going in the original content, instead it is going in the google.com. So instead of google.com, you can have here the malicious website. If you have any malicious website, user will be redirected to that website, or it can be also the clone website, and you can simply grab the content or harvest the credentials of the user with this URL redirection. So you can also see this link over here which has bunch of open redirect. So all you need to do is simply paste that payload which is just given over here at the last of your link, and let's see if this works or not. If you get any error or basically 403 forbidden information, that means it is not valid or you cannot access the information, or URL redirection is not valid to this link with this payload. And if you get some information like 404, that means page is not found. But if you see some redirection, that means this payload is working. So you can just try some of these payload. These are good payload example for the open redirect with the path fragment. So now let's see for another thing. So let me just go over here and let me search for something like Twitter. So I'll say Twitter, and this is your Twitter, login to Twitter. So if I just copy this link, so if I say copy link location, open my Sublime text, and if I just paste here, then you could see the link starts with google.com, but this is the actual link for the twitter.com. So if I just copy all of this, so now if I just copy all of this, so let me just copy this and go over here for the new user, which is basically this private window. If I just paste it down here, then you could see this link always starts with the google.com. So it has a google.com, so that user won't get suspicious. It will just see that this is the google.com. If I just hit enter, it will be redirect to twitter.com. So you can see that you can also make use of these some links to just make user to have a URL redirection. So instead of Twitter, you can just inject your malicious website over here. So this is the way to see for the path fragment. You can simply put some of this payload. So you can just download this from the resource section, or you can simply go on the Google and search for the cheat sheet, which is simply bug bounty cheat sheet, and you can simply search for the open redirect. And now we can also make use of an intruder to just give multiple payloads. So you can simply try this payload. You can simply just copy this and just enter at the end of this payload. But if you have multiple payload, so if you have list of a payload, so if you have use burp suit in the case of XSS attack, there was a functionality called as an intruder. So intruder is normally the way to just inject multiple payload lists to the URL, or basically to see if that works or not, if the payload works or not. So you can see we have the only here the 9 or 10 payload. This is okay if you want to just inject one by one, but if you have a bunch of a payload like here, so I have, okay, not here, okay, it is over here. So you could see we have a 462 line of lines, or basically it has those payloads over here. So it is impossible for you now to just copy one by one and just insert at the end of this link. So instead we can just make use of a burp suit to do that. So we'll also stick to this website to test for this website. So now first of all, make sure your proxy is on. So I'll just go to the options, I'll go to the settings and make sure this manual proxy configuration is ticked. And after that, this is the website that we want to attack. Let's see in the burp suit. So burp suit is opened over here. So I'll just pass something at the end. So I'll say we are checking for X. Okay, this is open. So I'll say at the end, I'll just pass open. It can be any parameter at the end because we want to inject. So if you just remember, we want to inject this payload at the end of this basically URL. So as we did with this URL, we want to inject all of this payload at the end in this open field. That means you can also give anything over here. You can also simply give test, you can also give your name, and you can simply inject this payload in this search in field. So I'll just stick with this open because this is open URL redirection. So if I just go over here, make sure intercept is on and go back to, let me close this one. So we are now just press enter to this field and go to the burp suit. So burp suit is getting this get request. So in the get request there is a open. So first of all you need to do is send this to the intruder, and in the intruder, in the position tab, you will just get this open. So make sure you just get all of these open selected, and first of all you should simply clear all the field. So let me clear, and again select this open and simply press add over here. So we are just adding all the payload in this open field now. So let's go to the payload. So all you need to do is simply get all of this payload from the resource section. It will have this open redirect payload.txt, or simply you can also, so let me make my intercept off now. So you can simply search for open URL redirection payloads, and you will get some link over here, open redirect payloads, and this is the payload text. So simply open that and you will just get this line of payloads over here. So all you need to do is simply create new notepad or the text file, and you'll simply copy all of these, which is the 460 some line of codes or payload. So copy all of those, go back to this text file and just make sure you paste it over here. So this is your all payload, and you simply save this to the folder where you can access in the burp suite, and I have already stored as open.txt. you can also give any name to this and you can simply save, and I'm not going to do that because I have already saved this same file, and you could see it is in my desktop with the name of open. So this is the same file. So now we'll just go to the burp suite, and we have already gone into this intruder. You can see the position. We have just added the position to this request, or basically to this URL, get URL. So now it's time to load those payload. So payload name is open. So let me just open this payload, and you could see it has 462 payload count. So all you need to do is simply see here the payload count and simply start the attack. It will take some time, give it a time to just attack for all of these payload length, and wait for it until it just process all of these payload. So it has successfully executed all the payload. So you could see it took a minute for me. So it has successfully first launched this simple payload, which is empty payload, and yet get 404 status code. That means nothing was found. So if you just remember at the beginning of the lecture, I have told that if you get any of the status code that begins with 3, that can be 3, and any code after that, it can be 3XX. So XX stand for any code. So you could see we have a bunch of those codes. So you could see here 301. So any after 3 is valid. So we'll just see for this one. So if I just see the response to the browser, let me just click this one, copy this, and let's see if this works or not. So I'll just go to the Mozilla and let me just paste and go, and it is not giving a redirection. Let me see if this is turned off or not. So it is manual proxy. So okay, it is not working. Let's see why. So it is not working. Let's see for another domain. So let's see for this one. Should be starting with 301. So let's see for this one. So okay, this is forbidden, this is not allowed. So you could see that we can just test these of the fields. So you can simply go with this one. So response in the browser, copy this one. So you can simply paste it right here. So after you just paste, you will see that it has injected some of the payload right here. And we saw in the previous lecture that it is only valid, that is this payload, this one payload, which was only valid to this case. So let's see if that payload was here or not. So it should be somewhere over here. So you can simply add your manual payload if you want. I'm just searching for the simple this one. So it is encoded over here. So let's see, let's check it out some real quick. So let's see for this one. So let's see. Also we have already got this and it was not valid. So let's see for this one. So send response to the browser. So I'll just go again over here. Let me paste it over here. So if I just paste it down, it is giving us alert of local domain.pw, because this was the payload that was going to just give some local domain. So local domain.pw has this alert. That means basically we have a URL redirection. So instead of going to this original website, it has just redirect to this local domain.pw. So instead of local this domain or local domain.pw, you can simply inject something like, okay, so I'll say it can be Google. So you can just change here, or basically you can change in the payload. So instead of local domain, you can simply go to the google.com and it will have the URL redirection to this link. So you can see we have an alert saying local domain.pw. So that means you have a URL redirection that you make use of whole of this payload to see if there is URL redirection or not in this list. So instead of this, you can simply, let me just add one real quick over here. So I'll just say google.com. so if I just add this, and now it has 463, so let me just start a tag again. So it will just take a time again, so I'll just pause for a moment until it finishes, and I'll just come in a moment. Now it has successfully finished all of these payloads. So it has injected all of this payload, but we wanted this payload. So you could see it has a status code of 301. If it was of 404, that means we wouldn't see this payload even, but it has response of 301. That means it has a URL redirection. Although its length is small, we'll just see the response in the browser, and we always see response over here. So I'll just quickly paste and go the same link. So let me just copy it one more time, the same link, so it should be right here. So I'll just say show response in the browser, open the link and paste and go. So when I just paste and refresh the page, then you could see it has redirect to google.com. that means it was valid, and we have already shared with this custom payload that we just injected over here, which was this payload, and just making over here. So you can also paste with the manually over here, and you could see the same redirection. Instead of Google, it can be your malicious website. So you can also make use of an intruder to load multiple payload. You can also see that we have a multiple payload over here. You could just see which of these works. So if you just get any request that starts with 300, and basically it is valid. So if you see 404, that means it is not valid. So you should not just simply copy this, and basically it is useless to see the response in the browser because it has 404. That means it is not valid. This status code is not found anything, or basically it is not having the URL redirection. So we just search for the code that is 301, and we'll just see response in the browser. Some of these will work and some of those won't, but it is basically what happens in the bug hunting. So this is the way to work with the open redirect through the path fragment. So in the next lecture, we'll just see for the another technique, that is just passing or just fetching these URL parameters and just customly just passing the target URL to those parameters. So that will be covered in the next lecture, but in this lecture we just simply saw how we can just make use of path fragment to inject the payload through the intruder and through manually and see the open URL redirection. So you can just simply copy or basically download this cheat sheet from the resource section, and just you can start applying those to the target websites or the live website. So see you in the next one. Now let's see about the open URL redirection through some parameters. So parameters are normally the attribute that is associated with the URL that will be responsible for the URL redirection. So we'll just see some of the important parameters, and we'll see the live action of those vulnerabilities in the next lecture. But for now, let's get some theory over here. So these are the couple of parameters which will be responsible for the redirection. So you'll have the redirect, path, URL, open, dir, navigation, view, show, return, next. So if you ever get some parameters that starts with redirect, then you can simply open that parameter and just make sure you enter any URL to that redirect parameter, and let's see that if it redirects to that website or not. And if it redirects, there should be the URL redirection, but if it doesn't redirect to the new web page, then there is no open URL redirection. So we'll just see some of these parameters, which is basically these get parameters, and these parameters are really important because these are the primary parameters that will just give us some URL redirection. So here are quick examples. So you'll have any URL over here, and there will be your URL parameter that will be embedded in the original URL, and with this URL parameter you can now inject your target HTTP websites. So you can have your HTTP website over here. This can be malicious website that can contain the payload, or you can put any website over here. So you will just target for this URL, for this next, or basically this is also the next parameter, and you can also see for the URL that is with the encoding. So instead of just HTTP, you can just encode like this way so that it would be open URL redirection. And the next one is a view over here. So view is also responsible, as we have already shown here that in the number 7, view is also the parameter that is responsible for the URL redirection. So there can be the target directly embedded in the view, and another is login to. There can be the login to parameter, return URL parameter, where will inject the payload or a list of a payload that can be the customized payload or that can be simple payload, and we'll see all of that examples in the upcoming lecture and get good grasp on each of these terms of the URL redirection. So see you in the next one. Now let's see open URL redirection through parameters in the action. So here we have the redirect payloads that we just did in the previous lecture. So these are the payloads that has the path fragments. So simply we just injected this payload at the end of the URL to see if it has open URL redirection or not. So this was the one payload, but now we don't want this. We just want to see the parameters. So it should be inside the URL. So we'll just search for some of these parameter like URL, return URL, next, or basically URL, and again it has only the URL. You can see for the redirect, you can see out, you can also see for view and everything. So you can see for this login to. So we'll now go to this website, and I've already started to just crawl this website, and I have just got few of these parameters. You can see the method over here, parameters, and the status code and the length. So I've just sorted out, and if you see here that in this link over here, this is the get method and this is the link. So this link has the account, login, and the return URL. So I've already said in the previous couple of lectures that anything that starts with this question mark is a parameter, and if the parameters is something like return URL or page and something like that, that means it is just redirecting to somewhere. So we'll just search for the new redirection. So in order to do that, you have to first send this to the repeater. So I'll just send this to the repeater and just go over here in this return URL, and now I'll just edit to the bing.com or maybe something else. So let me say http bing.com. So this is the way. So let me just go the response and see if this works or not. So I think this is not working, but let's see. Let's go over here, let's paste this down, and it is not working. So it is saying that it is not redirecting us to bing.com. This is also the return URL, but this is not redirecting. So let's see what happened over here. So instead of return URL, what you can do is simply you can put something like test, and you can simply send this to the intruder. Go to the intruder and go to the positions. Let me clear all of this position first, and let me select this test, add here the payload. So let me just load the open payload that we just loaded in the previous lecture. So let me just start the attack. It is working. So let me just wait for a moment. It is working with the sum of these all the payload, which is 462 payloads. So meanwhile, you can see we have this the return URL, which was the URL, or basically the parameters of this URL where you can inject this payload. So it can be something like URL. If you have something like URL, you can also have something like view. If you just get any parameters like this, then you can simply see by injecting some other website and see if this works or not. So in this case, we have a return URL. So let's go to the website again, and it has finished. So let's first of all make a descending order of this length. Let's see if this is working or not. So I'll just say a response in the browser. Let me paste in go, and it is not working. It is not redirecting to anywhere. That means this return URL parameter is not vulnerable. So you can just simply see for the another payload too, but I'm not wasting for any time. So you can see that we have a query even, so you can search for the query, but instead of query I'll go for another websites. So I'll just go for this website. So you can see we have this website, so platform innovation, because this website is not having open URL redirection vulnerability. So we just close this website. Now it's time to check for this website. So I've already spidered this host, and I have here that is added to the scope. So we have a bunch of URL here. So you can see the return to URL is over here. So return to URL is also the parameter that will just give you a redirection. So let's see if this does or not. So you can simply send this to the repeater, go to the repeater, and instead of this manual page, I'll simply say http, give the colon, and I'll say google.com. Let me just press go and show response in the browser. Let's see if this works or not. So I'll just paste it down here, and let me just close this and see. Let's see what happens. So it has redirected to google.com. So if you see over here, so it was something that return to was taking us somewhere. Let me just go to the target, and it was taking us to the index.php file. So instead of index.php, now we have injected our URL. So when I just say try again, and if I just close this sign button, so this is essential, because if you just close this one, then only it is redirecting. So if I just say index or something like index.php, and if I just close this one, then it is only redirecting to index.php. Now you'll just get the home page of Nokia Innovation. So that means it has a URL redirection through this return to. So you can simply check for these of this field. So it has also the service ID. So this is not going to give us a URL redirection. You have to search for some of these fields like return to and basically return URL or something like that. So this will be the lecture. So you can see the another parameter over here. So let me just try this one. So if I simply, first of all, I need to send to the repeater. So I think this is not going to work, even because we have seen for the login it was not working already. So it is the not good way to just see for this one. So you can search for the XSS attack instead of this URL redirection. You can simply put your own very much text or strings over here and check if this is showing any repetition on the repeater by seeing the response, and if it is, then you can simply just put the payload from the intruder, the list of the payload, which can be basically the XSS payload, and you can simply see if that payload works or not. So this is the way to work with the URL redirection. So we'll see more of these example in the upcoming lecture. So see you in the next one.